Hello, welcome to Lesson 5 of Music Theory Basics for the Advancing Guitarist. Let's take a moment and review. In Lesson 4, we discussed how major chords are formed from major scales, and we talked about chord inversions and how to find major chords in the key of G and C anywhere on the neck. Today, our objectives are twofold: to understand how minor chords are formed from the 2, 3, and 6 degrees of a major scale, and we'll be talking about chord formulas. We're going to have you memorize a chord formula that is used to make major chords into minor chords. And as you should be used to by now, you know we'd go there. We're heading back to the piano diagram. Sorry guys, it's just easier to see than on a guitar neck. So you recall that we built major chords off of a triad, and to make a C chord, for example, we started with a C, skipped a note, then E, then skipped a note, then G. So we played the first, third, and fifth notes in the scale. So in this case, to make a minor chord, we're just going to move over one, and we're going to build a triad off the 2, which would be D, skip 1, then F, then skip 1, A. So D, F, A. If you play the sound of that, that's going to make a D minor chord. If we built a triad starting with E, it would be E, G, and B. That would make an E minor chord. And if we started all the way up at A, and we went A, C, and then skipped up into the next octave, that would be an E, A, C, E. That makes an A minor chord. We'll listen to the differences on those in just a little bit when we go back to the guitar. And just like major chords had inversions, there were 3 different inversions, we can also invert minor chords the same way, where you take the lowest note in the chord, flip it up to be the highest note in the chord, and you'll have 3 inversions, exactly like you do with major chords. So to make a second inversion D minor, you'd move the D up from the bottom up to the top. That would be F, A, D. To make the third inversion, you would take the note on the bottom, move it up, and that would make A, D, F. Any combination of F, A, and D, D, A, F, that would all be D minor. Let's compare 2 chords you probably already know. You probably already know the D major chord and the D minor chord. I'm just playing those 3 strings right now. If I play the full chord, I'd include the 4th string. Let's see what the difference between those 2 chords are and why they sound the way they do. Notice on the first chord, your second finger is on the 2nd fret of the 1st string. That note is an F sharp. Okay, you'd be playing the open D string usually with it on the 4th string. The index finger is on an A. The 3rd finger is on another D. And then here is an F sharp. If you switch to D minor, now you have D on the 4th string, 3rd string is an A, 2nd string is a D, just like before, but now the only difference is that this note is 1 fret lower. It's on the 1st fret instead of the 2nd, making it an F natural. Let's take a look as to why that change has to be made. If we look at our C major scale, there is our whole step, half step pattern, 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. If we notice, we go, 2 whole steps to E, so it'd be 2 whole steps from C to E. But if we tried to go build our triad from D over to F, it's only a step and a half instead of 2 whole steps. That makes it sound different. If I was going to play the C major scale, just as written, okay, there's my C major scale. I'm going to play that same scale, but instead I'm going to start at the 2nd degree of the scale. I'm going to start from D and play my way up to the next octave of D. Listen to the sound of this scale. Doesn't sound like a major scale at all, does it? The reason for that is because the half step, whole step pattern throughout the scale has been changed because I'm starting on a different note. If I was going to play a D major scale, I would have to do some correction. So if the D, look at in the second line here where we have a D scale, that's what I just played, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. If I want to make that sound like a major scale, I have to make some changes to it. I have to go D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So to correct the scale for D major, notice I had to add an F sharp and a C sharp. That would give us a correct major scale sound if we started on, if you wanted to play a D major scale. But if we're playing in the key of C and we start building our triad from D, the pattern changes and we would have to have an F natural. Otherwise, we would be changing the key. So the difference is in the third degree of the scale, or the third, that was where you build your chord from. So D, F, A, the F natural makes the minor. If I play D, F sharp, A, that's based on a D major scale, and that would be a major chord. So a chord based off the 2 in the key of C will automatically be a minor chord. So this is some important Beethoven musical theory for you. Each chord function can be represented by something called a chord formula. The basic chord formula for a major chord is 1, 3, and 5. So it's the first, third, and fifth degree of the scale. The minor chord formula would be a 1, the flat 3, and the 5. So that means whatever your second note in your triad, the second note or the degree of the scale there in that case would be a flatted third. So minor has a flatted third, major has just a regular third, no alteration of it at all. So you want to memorize these formulas. 1, 3, 5, that's a major chord. 1 flat 3, 5 is a minor chord. You want to remember that major chords have this formula because they follow a pattern being built on the first, fourth, and fifth degrees of the major scale. The minor chords have this formula because they are built from the 2, the 3, the 6 of a major scale. The uppercase Roman numerals, when we write them out, indicate whether the chord is major or lowercase for minor. And of course, this works in every key with all the major and minor chords. If you take a look at the key of A major, there would be an F sharp, a C sharp, and a G sharp when you wrote out that scale. So if you build an A major chord, it's going to have a C sharp in it. So A, C sharp, E would be my triad. So I play the A major chord. I got A, E, A, C sharp, E. Now if I play an A minor chord, look what I do. Look how this changes on the fingering. Let me move my hand around where you can see. When I go from A to A minor, notice that note on the second string gets lowered 1 fret. That is the third degree of the scale, so it gets lowered 1/2 step. So it goes from being a C sharp to be a C natural. A major, A minor. Okay, let's try E. Here's E major. Now, to play an E minor, we just take off a finger. What that finger we took off, you're probably guessing, well, that must be the third degree of the scale. And it would be the G sharp would be E, G sharp, B. That would be our triad for an E major chord. To make it minor, that G sharp has to go down to a G natural, which is why we take that finger off. This explains the difference between your major and minor chords. And every chord shape you know every minor chord and every major chord, compare them, you'll see the change is all, and the fingering is always involves finding that third degree of the scale and lowering it one. We don't pay much mind to it because the grips that we learn for the chord shapes pretty much take care of that for us. But if you want to know why it's done that way, that's the reason. Now you want to bring out that chart where we had you write out all of the scales with all the keys. This is where it's going to be very handy for you. So you're going to take a triad from the scales indicated, and then you're going to figure out how to make those chords, the major chords, a minor chord. So for example, in the key of G major, G, B, D would be your triad. Well, in G minor, what would you have to do? If you're going to flatten the third degree of the scale, G, A, B would be the third. So you have to lower that one with a flat. So that would become G, right, B flat, D. Let's try it with the key of F. Okay, F, A, C, that's the A is your third degree, the 1, 3, and the 5. So F, A, C, to make an F minor chord, you'd have to lower that A, wouldn't you? That would make it an F, A flat, C. Try the next one. B flat major. Okay, we start off with B flat, D is the third, F is the fifth. So we have the third degree has to go down one to create a B flat minor. So it would be B, D flat, F. Good. Now E flat major, E flat, G, and B flat is your major triad. So you need to take that middle note there, that G, the third degree of the scale, and you have to lower it one. So it'd be E, G flat, B flat, and that would give you E flat minor. B major. Now this one's tricky because I threw some sharps in here at you. So B, D sharp, F sharp makes a B major chord. So to make a B minor chord, you have to lower the third 1/2 step. How do you get there? You'd have to lower that D sharp 1/2 step, which would make it a what? A D. So B, D, F sharp would be B minor. So here's an interesting little factoid. The power chord formula is 1, 5, 8. So the root, the fifth, and the octave. There's an A power chord. If we play a full bar chord for an A chord, it's going to include the first, third, and fifth degree of the scale. The third is the note that makes the difference between something being major and minor. If I play an A major, and then I take this finger off, that makes it minor. So the note I'm changing there is the third degree of the scale, C sharp. And I take that off and it makes it a C natural. Now, why we do this, when you crank up an amp and put some distortion on it, let me do that real quick. There we go. Now, if I play this A, and now play the A minor, the harmonics off of the third, the overtones, tend to make that chord really, really very cluttered sounding. And it's not very clean sounding. So we can get the same effect, either major or minor, by just simply taking out the third entirely using the first, fifth, and the octave, which sounds like this. I could use that as an A major or an A minor. It works perfectly fine for both because it's missing the third. So when you're rocking out through a distorted amp, you get rid of that third note, which causes it to get muddy and distorted. And when you're playing the root, octave, and the fifth, the formula for the power chord, it gives you a much cleaner, you get a much cleaner sound by removing that particular note. That's why we call them power chords, because when you crank them up and blast them through an amp, you get that sound of power. So that is it for this lesson. Your assignment: memorize the chord formulas. 1, 3, 5 for a major chord, 1 flat 3, 5 for a minor chord. Observe. Play every major and minor chord you know in every position anywhere on the neck and look at what fingers change. Every change that you're going to find is going to be the third degree of the scale. That goes from being a a normal 1-3-5 of the major scale to being lowered 1, a flattened third. Explore. Play a song using power chords and notice how you can substitute them in the place of major and minor chords. Pretty useful thing to know. All right, thanks for watching. As always, take your time, absorb the concepts from the material, do whatever written work is assigned, and go to lesson 6 when you've mastered the skills in this video. Don't take shortcuts. Do the hard work. It'll pay off in the end. Thanks again for watching. Bye.